Hello ladies, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking all about the core value of old money people or people who have old money habits, and one of the values is education. If you are new here, you may not know that we have been covering this book, the Old Money book, in the month of February, and it's all about how to live better while spending less, the secrets of America's upper class. So one of the things you may notice about people with old money values or are truly old money is that they really value education. Now, I'm somebody that have kind of thought that there are so many self-made people in 2022 who needs education. And in the last few years, I've definitely been changing my attitude because some of the people that I'm looking up to the most in my day-to-day life are people who they had a formal education. And you can't help when you're seeing people kind of move with ease a little bit more than maybe you are, you can't help but think, maybe my experience would be a little bit different if I was formally educated. So if you have stuck around this long, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Nicole. I've been on a little bit of a level up journey this past year, and so on this channel you can find topics about femininity, leveling up, and elegance. So this is why we're covering the old money habits, because we want to level up, right? And often you can't level up without money, but there are ways that we can still live better while spending less. So with that, let's talk a little bit more about education.
The importance of getting a good education should be communicated to children at the earliest possible age. It should be planned for by parents even before the child is born. Education is fundamental for quality of life and a common element in upward mobility. Beyond that, it helps one understand society, how things change, and how they never really change. It is essential to learn to do a task and do it well, even when one doesn't feel like doing it. On a personal level, education gives the educated options perspective and a set of tools that once obtained cannot be taken away. On a social level, it is essential to the preservation of liberty and the functioning of democracy.
Now, in this book, it really goes into a lot about how we can bring up our children. And I'm not somebody who has children yet, but I am on a journey to do that soon, hopefully that I'll have some news to bring you. And with that, of course, I'm thinking about how I'm going to parent my child. And of course, this is conversations that's happening between my husband and I on a daily basis. So when it comes to educating our children, one of the things that I am learning from this book is that often private education is very expensive and it isn't within reach. So if it isn't within reach, there are more creative ways that we can try to make our children have the most enriched education experience. Maybe that means that you are enrolling them in extracurriculars, or even yet, I have somebody in my day-to-day life who mentioned to me recently that she lives in one area and it's not a bad area, but she doesn't exactly enjoy the schools that are in her area. So one of the things that she's looking into, which I think is wild, but I understand, is she's looking at renting out her house and then moving and renting a smaller place in an area that has a better public school. And so she can put her child in that public school, because often the school that you go to is based off of where you live. And so that is something that they spoke about in this book, and it was so interesting to me because she is somebody that is so elegant, she's so classy, and I don't know if she's old money or not. I don't think she is, if she is trying to find a substitute to paying for private school, but she has old money values, and seeing her put so much stock into her child's education is such a old money value.
Old money reads to its children from an early age. This strengthens the bond between parent and child. It enlivens young minds. Reading to your child and giving them your undivided attention in a caring manner creates an association in their minds between books and love. This will encourage them to associate books with positive experiences and emotions. The value of this association as they go forward in life cannot be underestimated. How different a world it would be if young people sought answers to life's challenges in the works of great authors rather in the use of drugs, violence, and alcohol.
You'll often start to notice people in your day-to-day comings and goings that are more old money value minded. They might not be old money, but they have these values in their mind. And often you'll notice that these people, they don't watch a lot of TV, they do a lot more reading. And as I mentioned, they look at investing in their children's education a little bit more seriously than the average everyday person. Now, you might be like I was a few months ago and you didn't know, okay, how do I want to educate my children? Where do I want to educate them? What extracurriculars do I want to put them in? As I mentioned, I'm not someone who has a child yet. I'm not naive to the fact that I can speak a lot right now. Who knows what it will unfold like? But I love the saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I think that it's so important to have a plan of how you're going to do things. And if it doesn't unfold like that, that's okay. But it's something of importance, so you should put some time and thought into it. So one of the places I've been loving exploring different learning styles and education styles, etc., is TikTok, believe it or not. I've been learning a lot about the Montessori style of schooling. Equally, I watch a lot of homemakers on YouTube, and they often put their child through, I believe it's called the Charlotte Mason homeschooling program. Now, I'm not someone that I think would thrive with homeschooling. I would love to be, but I don't think that that's where my skill set lies. I might have to look into other options. Now, with that being said, I have heard from other Canadian peers that are here in the UK, and they've said to me that the public school system here is a lot higher educated than our Canadian counterparts. And so that's something that's been really interesting to me, that maybe I would just look into maybe getting my child a tutor. Now, even tutoring comes at a cost, and I think sometimes it's very costly, obviously, but there are other ways that we can think outside of the box when doing this. One of my clients does tutoring for Japanese students, and we live here in the UK. And so there are other ways that you can look outside of the box that might be a little bit more cost effective. There are people that speak English that are in other countries that are still smart and could privately tutor your children. So maybe that's something that we can look into when the time comes. Other things that I've been learning with old money is that extracurricular activities are a non-negotiable. I'm someone that was enrolled in many extracurricular activities, but maybe there wasn't the guidance or observance of ensuring that I committed to these extracurricular activities. And so with that, I didn't stick with any of them. Now, this is going to be a topic that I talk about in a later video, but being able to start something and finish it is such a great habit. So regardless of if it's a skill that they're going to take to a professional career, learning how to start something and finish it is a skill that they'll take with them forever. Now, I have to be honest with you, I'm somebody who I didn't really take school seriously. I'm somebody that is a more tactile learner, and I don't think that school systems are often set up for that, which is why it's so important to sit and talk and listen with your children. Now, with that being said, as I progress in my career and I take notice of the people that I'm looking up to, the people that I am gaining inspiration from, almost all of them have gone to post-secondary and got a professional education. Maybe they went into business, maybe they went into digital marketing, etc. But those skills that they learned are allowing them to set up a more stable business than some of us who have just kind of fallen into this industry and have thrown everything at the wall and hoping that it would stick. I think sometimes, I'm just speaking quite honestly with the topic of content creation, I think because it's a industry that really there's zero barrier to entry, I think that people think that you don't need an education for it, but you might not need an education in order to get into content creation, but you often may need an education or experience to get into managing a business. And I think that's where I've taken notice of other people that are thriving as content creators. And I look at they have the experience or they have the knowledge of being a business owner, and they're able to set an amazing foundation of their business up for success, more than the rest of us that are just kind of winging it. One of the creators that I have really taken notice of with this is a creator called Emma's Edition. She is, I think she's got like 50K, and she's making more than a lot of girls that I know with hundreds of thousands of followers. And I find that really inspiring. And I listen to her podcast, and just hearing her business acumen, you have no doubt or no questions of why she is doing so well. And it's because she really applied herself to her studies with her formal education, and I really admire that. So a little bit about my school journey is I wasn't the most academic child. I'm definitely more of a creative person and probably needed someone to come behind me and invest some time and extra resources to ensure that my academic side was as strong as my creative side. And so after I got out of high school, I then went into a high-paying government job, and then I hated every minute of it. And during that time, while I was hating every minute of it, I thought to myself, okay, what would I rather be doing? And so I came to the crossroads of either wanting to do radio and broadcasting or becoming a hairstylist. And the only reason why I didn't go to radio and broadcasting was the fact that I looked at most of the people that were excelling as a radio host, and most of them were men. And I understood why that happened, because a lot of women, they have children and then they're not able to do the morning show at 5 a.m. or it's usually a younger, kind of trendier girl that is on these radio programs. And so, be it that I knew I wanted to become a mom, I just thought it would be a short-lived career. Now, if I went into radio and broadcasting, I could have gone into journalism and be a lot more set up for success in my job now. If you are in journalism, you'll definitely learn how to do better at copywriting and just excel like that. And so I wish I went that route, because if I went down the route of becoming a hairstylist, and yes, it's great that I know how to do my makeup and my hair, etc. But those are all things that could be learned on YouTube. Whereas these other skills, I think, would have furthered me in more of a skillful manner, if that makes sense. Now, as I mentioned, I don't have children yet, but my husband and I talk about what will we do when this time comes. So obviously we will try and see if we can get our child into the best school possible. Don't think that we are in a position to do private school. Private school here in the UK is, I can't even begin to tell you how expensive it is, but who knows. Now, if we can't get into private school, I have already said I don't think that I would, as much as I would love to homeschool with the Charlotte Mason kind of style of schooling, I don't think that I'm best suited for that. And I think that there's a certain level of honesty and understanding that you might not be the best person for that. Equally, I think that we can get our child tutoring if needed, and I think it will always be needed. But I do think that you can explore other options, like I mentioned previously in the video. So let's talk about some of the takeaways of this chapter of this old money book. So it goes without saying, people with old money values, they look at giving their children the highest, best education possible. And it also should be noted that old money, or people with old money values, they talk, but they also listen to their children. Because when they're able to talk and listen, they're able to see these little areas that maybe they should help champion their child in this way, and maybe they're not as interested over here. And being able to understand how to guide your child will be the thing that I think stops you from running your wheels. The next thing that they mention in this book is that we need to ensure that we're not pushing our will on our children, and they're their own individuals, and so we need to take notice of the things that actually interest them as well. Which brings me to the next point. One of the biggest takeaways I've taken from this chapter of the book is not to overparent. When we overparent, we don't give our children time to fail and time to fall, and that is often where our biggest lessons come in. The next takeaway that I have from this book is not to solely rely on teachers or the school system. Mind blown. Think about it. You wouldn't just solely rely on your doctor. You would probably want a second opinion if they gave you horrendous news, right? So then why do we just take what teachers say for face value? Why don't we look into it a little bit more? All of my report cards said Nicole talks too much. Nicole would do better if she just applied herself, only to find out later in life that I have ADHD, and maybe there was certain ways that I learned or could have learned better, and we could have harnessed that and guided that into different channels. One of the things I'm definitely learning, regardless of if someone has learning difficulties or not, the fundamentals are non-negotiable. Children need to have and know proper grammar, science, math, because although it's funny because my husband always says like, oh, he never thought he would have to use pi, but he uses it almost every day in his job. But I think, you know, we often think, oh, we might not need to know our times tables. There's calculators, or, you know, grammar, there's autocorrect. And let me tell you, this is last year, I have learned that I've never needed those skills more. So I do think that we do need to ensure that children have the basics. One of the things I know my husband and I will be implementing when we have children is learning how to play a musical instrument. You might not have to become a pianist, but learning how to play something from beginning until end, go through the system of it. You might not do well at it, but again, learning to start something and finish it is a skill in itself. And I think when a child puts the energy behind something, they might not like it in the moment, but if you're talking with them and listening with them enough, you can see and you'll be able to assess, okay, it's time to call it quits now. They've tried their best. Maybe it's not for them. Maybe they don't have a musical ear. Maybe they don't have any rhythm. And so when you spend the time with them, you'll be able to assess if that's the case. But I do think that it's something that we will instill in our children, to play an instrument. The next takeaway is to not stifle creativity. I think sometimes parents can look and see and they're like, oh, I don't want to get my room messy, and so they're not letting their kids play in environments that will help their creativity thrive. And so I think that's another important takeaway that I've got from this book. And at the end of the day, you may need to be honest with yourself. Your child may be more lawyer than they are artist, and vice versa. So I think when you're spending this time with them, you'll be able to assess, okay, which one are you? Now, the last takeaway that I want to share, I have a few here, but this video is already getting a little bit long, is to network with your children's teachers. I just kind of review my own experience, especially as I don't have children yet, and I look at if my parents went to those student-teacher nights, is it student-teacher nights? Parent-teacher nights, maybe they would have had a closer relationship with my teachers, and be it that my teachers spent more time with me often than my parents did by the time they came in from work, maybe they would have been able to call out certain skills that they saw or certain weaknesses that they saw, and that would have been able to help champion me in other ways on my learning journey as I got older. Anyways, my friends, that is it for this video. I know it's been a little bit of a long one, but education is important. Tell me, do you believe that education is something that is important, or do you believe that we live in a day and age where you can get by on skill alone? Thanks for watching.